play in the mud with white gloves, the mud never gets glovier. And that continues to stick with me. And I was like, that sums up a lot of like the level. It's almost paranoia where you're like, all right, man, who are these guys? What are they saying? And you just start to look for little red flags and stuff like that. Point of me saying all this is you guys never triggered any of those red flags.
One thing that I've always been impressed when we have conversations is you like the challenge of solving problems, and you like leaning into that. Where does that come from?
I think at some point early in my life, I recognized that if you can do what other people are not willing to do, you usually end up with an advantage.
Sometimes just the knee-jerk reaction of information that you're not familiar with is, yeah, this guy's an idiot, laugh him off or whatever. But it's a great indicator for us when people are leaning in saying, hey, I want to learn. Well, you're just vetting yourself at this point of, oh, this is actually somebody that we can spend time with. The process that people go through to get to the point where they want to have a conversation is a beautiful thing, because it takes them on a journey of either I'm going to lean into this or I'm going to run and you're never going to hear from me again.
Welcome to the Cashflow Legendz podcast with your hosts, Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
Welcome back to Cashflow Legendz. Nate and I are thrilled to be here with somebody that we've known from the internet world for a while. We'll get into that in a minute, but our friend Ed Latimore, who has lived a very unique and diverse life. He talks about that a lot in his kind of 4 seasons of life, or 4 different lives he's lived. So Ed and Nate and I have had lots of conversations over many, many different things. And what I think we're finding is there's some foundational truths to everything if you're willing to do enough searching, learning, and understanding, and then building a basis off of that. So Nate, I know I'm fired up for Ed to be here. Ed, we're glad to have you. Give us a little bit of insight on how the heck you're sitting here talking to East Texan hillbillies.
The internet's a crazy place, man. I'll tell you what I tell people about marketing and not marketing, networking, and how networking works. And I really think this is all it is. You get good at something. It doesn't matter what that is. And your competence at that then becomes broadcast. It's like that old saying, when you're good at something, you tell other people, but when you're great at it, other people, tell people about you. You do that enough times and long enough, and you start to collect people, or build relationships based on merit, not like exchange, but merit. Like, oh man, like we saying, in the street, real recognize real. You see someone doing really good at something, that they're executing well. You might not know a thing about it, but you recognize excellence, and you recognize dedication and discipline, and all those buzzwords that make someone good at things. And so, what that's done for me, bringing this full circle, is even though I think I'm I know from a very different world with a different set of skills. We cross paths, as I do, with a lot of really cool, interesting people, because the internet has made the world less disparate. I don't think it's made it smaller, but it decreased the number of connections between interesting people who would never meet one another, even 20, 30 years ago. But now today, they're like the only people you meet. Or rather, if you get on and do it right, you should only be meeting people of a caliber that improves your life and adds something to it, even if it's just a passing internet relationship. And I think that is a nice general way to explain how I came to be sitting here. I'm just just on Twitter, doing my thing, which is writing reflections, and then with that producing content that people can use and see and growing, and then you guys are really solid dudes. So if you're like, and by solid, when I say solid guys, I mean like, I don't think I heard any of you guys even swear before. Like when I'm talking to you on the podcast and combos, I got to check myself because once you become aware that somebody doesn't swear like that, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to bring that to the combo because one, I don't think there's complete truth in this idea that like you can't swear, or people who swear don't have an extensive vocabulary. That's nonsense. I know it's nonsense because I know what my vocabulary had to develop
Yep.
for me to do what I do. But if you can't change gears, I think that is a sign of it, at the very least, of a lack of emotional maturity, in the sense that you can't recognize the room you're in and behave accordingly. But you guys are solid guys, so if you see that, despite some of the posts that I put on social media, which I would never describe as offensive, but certainly to put into perspective for anybody who doesn't know, I have a friend who's a principal at a school. I thought she was a principal at a high school. Turns out she's a principal at an elementary school. And I asked her, I was like, "Yo, you think there's any way you could, get me to speak to the students? I got a book coming out." I'm thinking she's in high school, right? Uh, and she says, "Well, what would you talk about?" And before I could even answer, she sent me a screenshot of something I said about crackheads. Like, and I'm like, "You understand that I can't, like, when the board goes and looks you up." I was like, "Okay, you know what?" Well, so the best way to describe my content, I think, would be like a hard PG-13, real soft, like a Mormon rated R. Like
Yeah.
that's how it would be. So, but you guys are cool. And
That's
You said something earlier about real, recognize real, and something I've said before is, if you truly are adding value, keep grinding, because eventually somebody's going to recognize that. Eventually somebody's going to pick up on that. And one of the things that I want to make sure people know, and I don't know how well you know this, Ed, but I owe you a whole lot, because when nobody knew my name on Twitter, you were one of the first people to shout me out to your audience,
oh,
as
no kidding.
somebody who was providing value, and that gave me a huge bump, and it created some momentum for my profile. And we ended up building our business. A big portion of our business was built on Twitter, just through my
You
account and
know
everything like
something,
that.
man?
So
Like you're not the first person to tell me something like that. Um and I don't I've gotten, let's put it like this, over the years, I've been in this social media game now, and we'll say internet marketing more generally, for almost a decade now, not more, well, a decade now. Because in my mind, I think back to when I got my Twitter account and really started messing with it for real. And today I was doing some math because I'm writing the script for my next video, and I was like, whoa, it's been like 2016 was 10 years ago, and I was very active on Twitter by then. I know that because part of the script is about why what would make certain Black people lean more conservatively, and I just think it's an interesting question to look at, not just from my experience, but also what the data says. And the intro to that was me thinking about. Uh, I put a poll out on Twitter asking if people thought I voted for Trump, and some guys said, "I don't think you voted for him, but like most Black men who come from nothing to make some of themselves, I think you lean more conservatively." And this was a Black guy who said this, and so it really stuck with me. But I went looking for it, and I realized when that was happening, it was during the 2016 election when Trump got elected. It was 10 years ago. 2016 was 10 years ago.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm pretty happy on there. But the number of people who have told me that, and it's not just like a random thing, and I'm saying a number of people, and I can't remember, like, no, names like Dan Gold, Chris Johnson, Jose Rosado. These guys, like I'll ask them for stuff and try and set things up, and they're like, you ain't got to pay. But if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even be. And I'm like, all I did, like all I'm doing is finding people who are cool, who I think aren't crazy. Because over time, you spend enough time in this space, and you'll see you won't see everything. That's impossible, but it's a logarithmic curve.
Yeah.
You start to see less new stuff less often.
Yeah.
And I've seen enough to be like, there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of slimy guys out there on the internet who are real good at fooling you. And if you don't know any better, you can come into the space and actually have some real legitimacy and absolutely ruin it because these guys hijacked it. And something that our mutual friend Brian Moody said, and it stuck with me. I give him credit for this. I don't even remember what he was talking about, but he said when you play in the mud with white gloves, the mud never gets glovier, and that continues to stick with me. And I was like, that sums up a lot of like the level. It's almost paranoia where you're like, all right, man, who are these guys? What are they saying? And you just start to look for little red flags and stuff like that. Point of me saying all this is you guys never triggered any of those red flags. And so it's been cool getting to know you and work with you on different things. And honestly, most people, if they came to me instead of talking to me about IBC, I think you're trying to set me up with some Amway type thing, man. Because there are I just retweeted a tweet about this. There's messengers and there's messages, and good messages get ignored all the time because of bad messengers. But bad messages get accepted all the time because of good messengers. Yeah. And when I look at something like IBC and the claims and everything like that, my brain, look, I'm not no spring chicken when it comes to the scams, not just from the internet, but from real life. But I also got to look at the type of people I see interacting with. I mean, I know you guys and I know Brian, and I'm just like, okay, clearly we can rule out it being a bad, something that's hijacked some low quality humans. And so you look more intensely at it. And I think I told you guys I wouldn't got the meta idea of how this thing works. And once I got that, I was like, oh yeah, it's actually kind of crazy. The more people talk about it.
Yeah.
It's actually really crazy, honestly. But you know why? But you know why people won't talk about it the way they hype up? I'm trying to think, man. I've been involved in what? Cutco, Amway, there's another one right on the top of my head, but a different MLMs because it's not an MLM. You're selling a product, and it takes time. As I think about the math that I roughly have, it takes a little time and consistency, but it's a lot faster than a typical kind of investment structure. That I've picked up on.
You have Ed. Let's touch on that for a sec. There's so many. I already can tell we're going to have you back on if you'll agree to it, because there's so many things we could discuss where there's crossover in our stories, our experiences. But it's important for all trying to make it in the internet world today, because make no doubt about it, you can make it in a different way than you could 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Oh, this relationship doing right now.
Same. But this relationship that Nate and I have with Ed didn't start a month ago. We've been having interactions with Ed for 6 years, 7 years.
I'm trying to think.
Somewhere in there.
I think
2019 is when we first connected.
Yeah.
2019, 2020, somewhere around there is when we first connected. I think it was 2019.
Yeah, it would have definitely either been while I was in Portugal or right before I went. So 2019.
Yeah, I think it was right before you went, if I remember right. The key piece there is that sound, logical approaches work no matter what platform, like you were talking about, because of the message and the messengers. If we're not willing to be diligent enough to get on and get to know somebody with long range thinking, we're asking to be taken advantage of.
Yeah, there's this song by this British rap group called The Streets, and their stuff is okay, but they got this song. I don't remember the title of it, but the chorus is you can't con an honest you can't con an honest John. An honest John is hard to con, and they talk about a con and how it works, and it's kind of cool. But like when you think about how a hustle has to work, how a deception has to work, like nice people. I won't say this. Generous people aren't getting scammed, kind of by definition, because they're not trying to make a buck or do anything. They're just trying to help somebody out. A scam shows up, or rather, a person's susceptibility to being misled and deceived in this way is when they're seeking a shortcut. If you can promise them a faster, cheaper way to do things that seems unreal, well, it's probably unreal, first of all, but you want to believe. You want to believe. There's a great economist. Look, I won't say never, but this is one of the few times I was listening to some free content that was so good I had to pay for the rest of the content, because the Economist, they had this podcast called Scam Inc. and you get the first like 2 episodes for free, and it's like, if you want to listen to the rest of this, get a membership at the Economist for only $88, and it was 2 years, and I was like, okay, because I wanted to hear the rest of it. And then I tried to listen to something else, and it was just kind of dull. I was like, well, I got my $88 worth. But the way what Scamming talks about are these pig butchery schemes, where they find these people on the internet and they build these like pseudo relationships with them, whether they think they're real, and they get them to send money in crypto and keep sending money in crypto. And you hear about it and you're like, that's crazy. Why would you continue to send money to somebody off rip? Like, but it starts slow, and they always pray. They got a whole protocol, because they got people that escape from these compounds where they like have the people call out, and they were telling about the protocol. And like, you got to look for people who have just been like widowed or divorced. You got to look for people who are older. You're looking for people who like have something missing, and you can try and fulfill that quickly, because it's super believable, or not believable. I was being sarcastic. I'll speak clearly, and then get on to like a person I interviewed, because if I'm sitting here minding my own business, I haven't, no woman's looked at me in years. My wife is gone. I'm lonely, and some young 20-something looking girl from Russia starts sending me messages randomly. It's like, yo, just send the money. I swear I'm coming. Look, they interviewed a guy who said he went to they got special task force set up, because it's not illegal what they're doing. That's the crazy part, because they're not stealing your credit card. You're sending the money. But they have put together special groups, and the guy went to the group and was like, yo, I think it's a scam. But I just need to know for sure, because I really like her. And the woman was like, yeah, it's a scam. Like, she's not coming. He's like, I'm gonna try one more time. I'm gonna just send her a little bit more money and see what happens.
Yep.
Like you want to believe the nonsense. You want to believe that there's a shortcut. But that's, like you said, but that applies to everything. It just so happens to apply in that situation to a person feeling empty for love. But whenever you feel empty for something, and you're not willing to do the work, or in some cases you can't, or whatever, you're ripe to be picked off. But those type of people don't have the long-term thinking that you're talking about.
That's right.
Long-term thinking is like a hallmark, because you can't lay the foundation all of a sudden. Be like, if I got on Twitter tomorrow, new account, and I was like looking at all the accounts bigger, and I was like, okay, I want 100,000 followers, and somebody comes along like, bro, yeah, I could sell you some followers.
Yeah,
and you'll be like, word? I don't have to go through it. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, trust me, it's $25. Man, I've seen this.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Well,
and they're not real. There's no engagement. You try to shortcut the process, and now it doesn't work. All you just out some money. You can't shortcut any process.
I know of at least 3 people who have reached out to me over the years who got scammed by somebody who copied my account and then started reaching out to them about crypto stuff. These people had my phone number, but they were communicating through direct message on social media and just thought it was me. And I was just like, I mean, I was just like, you had my number. Like, why didn't
Right.
you just think to take that one extra step? Like, you were so excited about the possibility of, like you said, getting something for nothing, or getting that shortcut, that you didn't even think to vet it properly.
Shortcut it all the way. And you know how that happens? Look, it's one of my favorite videos, or better performing videos on YouTube, man. I talk about um, why people fall for scams. And the biggest reason is, look, there's some stoves you have to touch to know they're hot. But or you need to see somebody get burned. You don't have to get touched. You got to see somebody get burned. If you grow up in a nice, stable environment and with supportive parents, you know, you don't know anything about this.
That's true.
You don't even know what to look for when somebody come to you with some and this is, maybe some people crucify or vilify me. I don't know for this, but it's one of the reasons why I can't trust crypto. I don't care what it goes to. I don't see how you can get people um like how like everybody's got to spend money. You're telling me there's a finite supply. Yeah, my inflation is a big deal, but at the same time, if you fix the supply of something and a few early players get all of it, then what you're going to end up creating is a society that you'll create in the pure sense of the word. What is it called? Oligopoly? I might have the word
Uh,
wrong. Oligarchy.
Oligarchy. Is that what
Yeah.
you're talking about?
Not that, because I think oligarchy is a form of government, but it's
Yeah,
where.
you're right.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
But the idea is like a few people have all the money. Like
Yeah.
like if you make it a currency, then you have to divide it down to infinitely as new technologies come out, or more people are born or whatever. And eventually you get to a point, because it's not divisible by infinity, which is what I thought it was at first. And I learned, I was like, wait, so we have this fixed supply amount. I'm not saying that's better than being able to just print out money, but it creates a different set of problems. And those problems are the type of problems that people are going to try and solve through some violent means, which is shortage. But that that's neither here nor there. That's just my thought. But one of the reasons I don't trust certain things is I look at it, and I would like to think. See, everybody's like, "Oh, you don't understand crypto well enough. You're not a smart guy." I'm I'm not an idiot.
Ed will say it. You're a smart guy.
Um,
For what that's worth, from my conversations with you.
I'm not saying it's not something that you can throw your money in and maybe make some money back. That's not even the argument. The argument is whether it'll become this currency that everything is accepted for, and I think that would be one of the worst ideas ever. But I don't want to get too crypto.
You and I. So the last time we visited, we talked a lot about. I said this to you, and it really resonated with you, but I think it pairs perfectly with what you're saying. So Nelson Nash, who wrote the book "Becoming Your Own Banker," said often, "Once we know what the problem is, we'll know what to do." And what you're describing is, you either have to see somebody touch that hot stove, or you have to touch it yourself to realize that that is hot, and you don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
The reality is that is everywhere. One of the questions we get asked all the time is, well, if this is so true, Brandon and Nate, and y'all seem to be genuine dudes, like Ed has said, and you aren't selling anything up front, you're selling education and betting on yourself, then how come more people don't understand and get taught this? And the question has the answer.
Right.
Because the message is being blasted so loud, even though the messenger's intentions are bad.
Oh, for
Just to
sure.
believe
Yeah.
it.
Well, not only that, but like it's like when people ask these questions, like what should be taught in school, or why don't they teach personal finance or tax and all that in school? And I say straight out, look, if you taught how to live in compulsory education would not exist in the next generation. There's no way
It's
you
already
couldn't.
happening, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Like
It's already
like
happening.
the AI really accelerated that because how
Yeah.
do you at least for some things,
Yes.
whenever people complain about AI making college uh I don't know, just easy to get through. I go, well, that's because they're in majors where you can use AI to pass.
Yeah.
I I had, when I was going through college, we had calculators and formula sheets you write down as many formulas you wanted. We had a computer to program with.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
that didn't save us because we had to actually solve problems.
Yep. So,
Um,
Ed, you just said something there, solve problems. I want to be sure we get to hear a little bit of your story, because you have lived a lot of different lives in 40 years, as far as that's kind of how you describe it and you talk about it. But one thing that I've always been impressed when we have conversations is you like the challenge of solving problems, and you
Well,
like leaning into that. Where does that come from?
um, you know, I think at some point early in my life, I recognized that. Well, I can't even say. I mean, I guess it is relatively early. You're right, 40 years.
Yeah.
Um, I recognize that if you can do what other people are not willing to do, you usually end up with an advantage. Now you got to figure out, what those things are and how they align with your personality and your gifts or whatever. And so for me, for example, with boxing, one of the things, first most people don't box, right? Yeah,
Yep.
that's clear. But I remember I was just telling this story to somebody. I was recruited out for this program in California and spent like 16 months out there, and where they were paying for my food, my apartment, my training. All I had to do was pretty much not lose any amateur fights. I mean, like I think I lost two, but like um, I'm trying to think. One was well, they were both tournament level fights at the highest level. I basically could only lose from other guys that like either in the program at a high level or
Yep.
like someone they didn't really expect me to beat, but would have got good experience for. And our apartment was one place, and the training facility was about a mile away. And so every morning the guys would like drive over and drive back. And I'm just like, why would y'all drive? That gives you a chance to get some cardio in. And like so it's like go run. And so that's what I did. I just ran because that's something that everyone else wasn't willing to do. I did it and it made a difference. I'm one of the guys that lasted until the very end, right before the Olympics. And then the guy who made it to the Olympics also came from the program. But point is, that's just one little example. Or it's like what I'm doing right now, promote my book. The book publishing thing is one of those things that like it's an experience not everyone gets to go through at this level. And I'm just learning certain things and experiencing certain things. But what I understood from my first self-published book is that generally speaking, there is a such thing as bad press. They don't believe that nonsense. There is bad press. There is some press that it ain't gonna get you canceled, but it's gonna make you enemies with no gain. But I understand how to grab good press, and so I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go fight again because the book is about fighting. I'm in great shape. There's a good story behind being this age and fighting in the book. I know how to spin and use that. Let's go. But boy, is it hard. It's not hard because I'm out of shape. If anything, I'm so this might sound unbelievable. If anything, I'm a better fighter now than I was 8 years ago. What's hard now is I got this pet human that floats around and he needs stuff. I gotta balance that with my wife's schedule and everything. But I think it'll be worth it. It's the same way I feel about all of these problems. And we talk about the vanity part. We'll just talk about the vanity part. I just like being an interesting guy. I don't. I'm look. I could be a hermit and just hang out by myself all the time. Can't do that though because like I'm not wired that way. I need some interaction. I don't need a lot, but I need socials. But when I'm out there, man, I can't stand talking about nonsense.
Yeah.
And since I can't make everybody talk about what I want to talk about, I'll just be an interesting subject, be an interesting guy to talk about. And part of it is because I got those insecurities growing up, and you want to deal with those in a constructive way, and because not all everybody talks about insecurity like it's a negative thing. Like if you're secure in yourself, you're not going to do anything to better yourself. You're like, okay, we good. Like, no, I've got insecurities, and instead of looking at those and going, ah, man, maybe I need to take some pills or something. I don't know. No, let's go make myself secure. I'm always trying to prove myself to myself. Other people just happen to be an audience, and done correctly, that audience will pay. But it really is about. I mean, I just can't imagine a very easy life, or rather, I don't want to make it sound like I'm a glutton for punishment. What I've learned is that fulfillment comes through having a challenge to work through. And if you don't have challenges, you will find out very quickly that endless consumption never works well. There's so many ways to consume things, but producing things that's hard. And or to use an even more general term than producing things, to decrease the entropy of a system. So whether that is maintaining your body against its degradation of just life, or it's sharpening up your mind at learning a new skill, or it is increasing your income by increasing your personal value and then finding ways to apply that. All of these are ways you're fighting entropy.
Ed, you just said something that really resonates. So we talk a lot about the 4 F's: faith, family, fitness, and finance. And what Nate and I, and you just said it beautifully, have begun to really understand is people try to segment that instead of get it in alignment. So Nate and I know that the foundation of who we are is our faith. And everything that we do with our faith permeates through how we think about our fitness and our family, which then revolves through our finances. And the more you can get those in alignment with purpose, which normally is connected to production, not
Yeah.
consumption, the more challenges you're going to experience, but the more our boy Ajax always used to say, you're just fighting gravity.
Yeah.
It's really what's happening. In any walk of life, if you are not pushing back on what's trying to occur to you by the design that we believe God created to die, then you are going to die faster in your mental state, your physical state, your emotional state, because you're giving in. For lack
Yeah,
of a better
there's
term.
this weird idea out there that life's supposed to be easy. You know, I don't I don't know if I would say it shouldn't be hard. And I think easy hard, I think that dichotomy is probably it's imprecise and almost to the point where it creates the wrong impression and the
Yeah.
wrong goal. Should it be fulfilling or should you be content?
Mm.
I don't I think there's like this kind of like you said, there's base faith that everything is um gonna be all right in the end, but only if you do everything to lead up to it correctly. Like ideally, you want to die naturally
Hmm.
and in no pain. And there's only one way to do that, and then you can't not die. Right? So
Yeah.
so let's get that one out.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Yep.
so you want to make sure you age and take care of yourself, and you want to make sure you have people around you, and that means you got to gotta grow up and not be an a-hole, and multiply a few times, hold your relationship together so that when you're in your 60s and your 70s, people are happy to be around you and want to be around you, and you have those built. So you've staved off the one thing that'll jack you up. That loneliness is a big deal. If you take care of how you eat and you work out and exercise, you're taking care of another thing that's gonna make your life harder as you get older. And if you handle your financial situation, and you don't have to make a lot of money, but you need to make sure you understand that um, either you got to make sure that you're not uncomfortable.
So let's touch on that real quick. Comfort, I don't remember who says this, but it's very true. Comfort can become a cage. We know that for sure. But the number of times, Ed, that Nate and I, because we've been, we mean this genuinely, been blessed with information that we don't think most people either want to know or have the opportunity to know. And you figure that out real quick in a conversation. The number of times this week I visited with somebody who had close to $1 million locked away, and they're killing themselves working 12 to 16 hours every day of the week and don't think they're going to make it because they bought the lie as the truth that money needs to be accumulated and drawn down, connected to an environment that they don't control. And with just a few questions and conversations, they already done all the work like you described it, and they were about to fizzle out because they were exhausted, because they were getting to that slower season of life where they wanted to be around kids and grandkids, and they didn't see how they could do it because they believed the best knowledge they had.
Yeah.
It wasn't they were doing it on purpose. And they was just doing the best they could.
There's got to be. I liken that to where the dietary state of the country is, and to me, the way to eat seems obvious. But I have to step back, and I always argue this back to people because I'm aware of it when I see someone make the argument. That it's only obvious to me because I put a lot of time and energy into studying these things and made it second nature by constantly practicing. So I scan and just see things. I'm like, why would you ever eat that? That's crazy. Okay. Like not even from, I'm trying to be just, in fighter shape help, but like just in general. If you consider that, well, all knowledge is like that, why would you do this? I'm going through the same thing right now, training for a boxing match. To come back and continue to fight and train. And from the biomechanical standpoint, we think, okay, one way is the best way to do these things. And I just kept looking and looking, and I said, this is crazy. Why are we doing it this way? And fortunately, I have a coach who happened to converge on the same ideas the same way. So we're doing things a different way to train. And it really, like, it shows. It really shows. And it shows so well that, like, because there are parts that he doesn't have that I have and vice versa. And his part is easier to assimilate in on my like knowledge tree than mine is on his, especially someone fighting. He actually said the other day, at the end of the last sparring session, he's like, you're getting better, like surprisingly better. He seemed a little stunned. It's kind of cool. Well, that and getting your health right too. One of the big things I did here too is we're talking about, again, knowledge, how everyone is doing stuff. So I had to get all of these tests done, which because I'm over 36 fighting, and I think it's a good idea, but it's a pain in the ass. It's just a pain, right? And so, fortunately, I'm with this group. I don't know if you know Jack Murphy. Or not.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So he's got this group, Rebel Health, and it's like concierge telemedicine. And I'm like, okay. And I had been working with them. They actually got my thyroid fixed. I didn't even know it was a problem. Large, medical doctors and everything, and how they overlook stuff if it's not a major problem. They get this fixed. Looking at my blood work and all that, but I needed a script to get a stress echocardiogram because they want to make sure your heart's not going to go plop at 37, right? But like they want to make sure. So I got this script done, and I go and get all this finished, and I'm healthy, and I'm just sitting here like, well, all of this, if they make me do all of this because they're worried I'm in danger, why not what are we letting other guys just do? Because 36 is not that different from like a conditioning point like of a 26-year-old who's both have kept themselves in shape enough to fight well. If I would know if it was like if I was 40 or if the cutoff was for like 40, I would actually get it. Even though I happen to be 40 when I test, the cutoff is 36. And I'm like, come on, man, this is crazy. But I say what I have to say that having all of this information about your health, about your money and what works with it, it overlaps because look, it's another thing that really stands out to me just as I dive in to the IBC even more and try and learn it is it's actually not complicated. It's just different. And it's so different that it looks complicated. if you don't know it because you don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
It's like learning another language. It's like Russian looks very difficult to an American speaker, like intimidatingly so. But then you realize it's just a different system. It's this, like it's communicating, it's accomplishing the same thing. Get this idea in my head to your head in a way where the most information is preserved over sound waves. That's all the language is doing, okay? We got a system for English, a system in Spanish, and we got these Russian dudes up at the gym. So I'm learning this system for Russian. And it's intimidating at first because it's so different than the other two systems. But then once you get a kind of a grasp of the system, you're like, oh, okay, I understand. It's different than how you do things, but when you go and you see it, you do it. I feel like IBC is just like this.
Yes.
Because with boxing, it's like this. It's like I see because I'm watching fights now, guys, and I'm like, you're doing it that way, and there's so much more energy, and it's less efficient, but it's just what they've been telling you, and no one's come and checked you because no one knows better. And that's the thing. Well, I guess that's a similar thing too. People don't know better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nelson called it the arrival syndrome, which is thinking that you can't learn anything new, or just because it's always been done this way, you keep doing it that way, even if there's a better way.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't help that like you guys aren't. Did you send me the clip where Dave Ramsey was hammering IBC?
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, look, if this was true, these guys would be in jail. Like that was my first thought. I was just like, if this was not, and look, I'm not gonna lie, I sat back and waited. I wanted to see, these guys gonna get pinched. It didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, and there's also something else to that too that I think we can compare. Your boxing journey when you were younger and what little you told us in your coach. And then let's just say we connected, a couple of years later after that, what'd you call them? Floating human or floating.
Oh yeah. Pet human.
Yeah. Your pet human arrived. Is that you said to us, you've gotten paraphrased much cleaner and clearer on how you describe what you do. And I heard you say that about boxing, which if you believe something to be true, you're going to keep going through. One of our good friends says, yeah, I teach people how to practice IBC because I love getting made fun of by 99% of the industry who doesn't understand.
Oh, man, you're right. That's exactly what I would say 99%, but it's a high percentage of people who will come on a video and say, you're doing it wrong. You're doing this way. I'm like, okay.
Yep.
And you know what's funny though? It's never somebody that actually competes. It's never. It's just weird. But even people who compete, they don't know what to say. But you're right. You once you understand something well enough, and it's just different than the way everyone else is doing it. You'll be able your results. You like you'll have had to get lucky because people are terrible at admitting that they didn't understand things, and even worse, they're going, "Well, I want to learn from you now, even though I was clowning you before." Uh, so you'll have to be written off as lucky.
Mm-hmm. Nate, what are you about to say?
So, well, it reminds me of somebody who tried to troll me on Twitter, and I said, "Hey, send me a message and let's talk." And so once we actually spoke, he became one of our clients.
Oh wow!
Like he actually started. We started working together. So, sometimes just the knee jerk reaction of information that you're not familiar with is,
Oh,
this guy's an idiot, laugh him off or whatever. But it's a great indicator for us when people are leaning in saying, "Hey, I want to learn." Well, you're just vetting yourself at this point of, "Oh, this is actually somebody that we can spend time with. This is not somebody who's going, all right, you got to convince me that this is the real deal." Like I couldn't even tell you when the last time was that I had a conversation with somebody where they were sitting back in their chair with their arms folded saying that you got to convince me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, because the process that people go through to get to the point where they want to have a conversation is a beautiful thing, because it takes them on a journey of either I'm going to lean into this or I'm going to run and you're never going to hear from me again.
Yep.
yeah.
And so that's one of the things that's really powerful about introducing, I wouldn't say controversial information, but contrarian information to the narrative that's out there. Typically, is what you understand is most people who have something to say against you, it's only one of two things. It's either by ignorance or by agenda. And so
Yep.
you just have to run it through one of those two filters. So if Dave Ramsey's out there saying IBC is a scam and, these guys are ripping you off and all this stuff, well, it's either ignorance or agenda. And you have to figure out which one of those it is, because as you lean in and learn about whole life insurance, like you said earlier on, once you understand it at some level, you're just like, why isn't everybody doing this?
Yeah, like at a very basic level. That's like where the idea came in. I was just like, that's what a strange world we're in.
So we're definitely going to have you back on, Ed, but I want to be sure we tie in two things that impacted us that you brought so much value to, other than helping jumpstart our Twitter world and all that. Is when Nate and I began to rethink our thinking and go, there's got to be something more. And I always say, I gave up alcohol without going to any kind of thing other than my walk with the Lord. And I know you did too, 3 years, almost to the day before I did. And when you remember all that, well, Nate and I started being readers and appliers aggressively right when Nate and I reconnected when we started our company. Well, we read your first book, and it was probably one of the first 10 books we read.
Oh, no kidding, man.
Yes.
That book is terrible too, man.
Hey, well, it was a really cool idea.
Yes.
And I know you shout out somebody for giving you the idea at the beginning of the book, but to be able to sort of take and condense some of your original tweets, which at that time was 140 characters, and expand on them was just a really cool introduction to kind of who you are and kind of how you thought and everything like that. And there was a lot of conversations came out of that book between me and Brandon as accountability partners as we were kind of reading that book together. And like I said, that was even before I'd even gotten on Twitter and knew who you were at the time.
No kidding.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool.
Well, I was sending Nate screenshots of some of the things you would say and others, back when it was the OG Twitter where you really
back before you had to really.
Yeah. he had to have a blue mark and all that stuff. And it was, something different now, and they kept seeing I'd send him your stuff a lot. And because it was 140 characters, what I love about that is a lot of times when we're limited on resources, we're at our best.
Yeah.
And that was a thing I look back on now, because one of our mottos this year that we've leaned into is do simple better with things that take no talent, which is in line with what we've been talking about all day today, of showing up and doing the thing that most people won't do, like running a mile to the gym when everybody else wants to drive. That is the difference between consumerism and producing.
Yeah.
And that choice is everywhere in our life on a daily basis. And so when we read that book, it really challenged us because, one, it resonated with me because I knew your story with alcohol. Two, I was just starting to go through that journey. Two, we knew you were an athlete, and you were a competitor. And so it just really, a lot of those things connected. And truthfully, Ed, your PG-13 soft R humor was refreshing because you are who you are. And you're not, when we got to meet you in person, looking back, it's who you are. Yeah, you're aware enough and acclimated enough to know the room. And
yeah, well, like that's something
smart. That's smart. But I also think when you say that about us, I take it as a compliment because we've been consistent enough that it matters enough to you.
Well, yeah,
to be aware of that.
If you came out of nowhere dropping an F-bomb, I'd be like,
right.
Whoa, what the? Like, whoa.
Yeah. What's going on here?
Yeah, like I mean, I think something was wrong.
Yeah. Well, here's the crazy thing, Ed. I was just having this conversation with my son the other day. Before you and I met, I used to cuss like a sailor. And nobody would believe that unless they were behind closed doors with me doing it. And so my point to that is when I look back over your 40 years and what you've shared with the public and what we know about you, there's this constant progressive approach to fail, learn, try, do again, be challenged, fail, learn, try, do again, be challenged.
Yeah.
And getting around to this willingness that we'll never understand everything, but if we're willing to understand that others do know things differently than we do, like you and I have had so many conversations about boxing that relates to money mindset and behavior, and relates to baseball, and relates to just these truths that are foundational. The real question is are we willing to go on a journey to find the truths?
Yeah.
And comfort is normally the reason we aren't.
It's funny you mentioned that because I remember connecting with a pretty successful podcast host several years ago. Like he had some success in the podcast world, and he identified the fact that my language just was pretty clean, and of course I shared with him first and foremost why. But from a media perspective, one of the things that I told him was no one's ever going to complain that you don't cuss enough.
Right.
But they will complain if you cuss too much, And he was like, man, I never thought about it that way.
Yep. And it's perspective, isn't it, Ed? A lot of times it's just how you tilt your head and you go, oh.
You see things differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as much as I love talking to you guys and
yes,
all
sir.
that, it's a great day. It's my wife's 41st birthday. Wow.
Okay.
Awesome.
How weird is that, man? 40.
Tell her happy birthday for us.
Yeah.
Mine was yesterday.
Yeah. Hey, Ed, tell us about your newest book so we can be sure that everybody that listens gets
Oh yeah, man, the book. Because we chatting and everything, and it's a good time. But yeah, so the newest book is Hard Lessons from the Hurt Business, Boxing and the Art of Life. And it's a memoir about my whole, not my whole life, but the key parts to the narrative, where I grew up and what I grew up around, and then my fall into drinking, and which also coincided with me getting into boxing, and how boxing ultimately changed everything for me, not just helping me to deal with my demons, but also set me down a path to go back to school. People don't understand. They don't often believe me when I say the reason why I went back to school and had faith to do a degree in physics is from boxing. Yeah, I wouldn't have had that if it wasn't for fighting. And I walk people along that path, and each chapter is a lesson, and then within that are sub lessons with the story. I'm really proud of what I was able to do, which was tell my story in these lesson themed chunks, but narratively and chronologically. So you're able to follow along and see the great stuff. You learn a lot about the boxing world, which is another thing. My editor gave me a really interesting piece of feedback in the first draft. He's like, we want to see more boxing. We want to be taken into that world. And I said, I never thought about that. It's like right in front of my face because it's the world I've known now at this point. I'm working on since I was 22. So I'm like, oh, there's nothing. Who wants to hear about that? And I realized like everyone does who's not in it. Like, and because it just seems so obvious to me. So I'm very excited. I put a lot of heart into that. I'm putting a lot of energy into marketing. They really don't, anybody can write a book. But why does that book become popular? The marketing part. Sometimes it's incidental. Despite that book not caring what other people think is a superpower you were telling me about, I still think it's a terrible book. And I know, and I know it is. I didn't have any budget. My skills were lower, but I did it because I wanted to do it. And I thought it was a good idea. Well, it turns out to be really the thing that set me up for a lot of stuff, because even though the material was bad, it brought attention on to me. And a lot of shows were interested in having me on. And a lot of the relationships I'm using now to promote the book came from that book. So the podcast and things going on, a lot of people heard about me through that. So yeah, I really appreciate the love on that first book. That book it's sold at this point, I think 15,000 copies. And I mean, you want to talk about minimum marketing? Like, I'm still shocked. I go on KDP and it's still selling like 20, 30 copies a month. I'm like, well, who is buying this? But I guess new people are finding out about me every day as I continue to grow on social media. And so when this new book comes out, I hope they'll read it and find out and really, really, dig in and have a ball. Because one thing about writing for a house, man, at least any house worth their weight, they're gonna make sure you produce a damn good book, because they don't want their name attached to garbage.
Yep. That's
so
hard lessons from the Hurt Business, boxing, and the art of life.
Mm-hmm.
And even though Ed's given his first book crap, I would say go ahead and get it too, because it'll also let you see the journey that Ed's been on and where he started. And when you get this next one,
for sure. And look, if you're gonna go grab that one, you may as well grab the second one, Sober Letters to My Drunken Self. That book, it's a niche audience, so it didn't sell nearly as much. But the people it sold, they really were afraid. I can see it in the reviews, and the feedback I get. I still get messages to this day randomly. You helped me stop drinking with this book, or I thought I was having a problem. I saw this book, picked it up randomly. You helped me stop drinking, which is the effect I wanted to have. That was a very intentional book. I had money for a budget, and it shows in the design. Still not the writer I am now, but a much better writer than I was with the first book, and it shows. So yeah, if you want to see the journey, and also if you have issues with drinking or anything, I recommend that book. That's still the best thing, second best thing I've contributed to the world. I'm hoping my kid will be the first. No one wants to raise a serial killer, and that definitely is not going to be a good contribution to the world. So I'm gonna do my best. Right now, that's the bar. Make sure you don't kill more than one person.
Well, since it's your beautiful wife's birthday and you better go enjoy the evening with her, we better let you go so that you're still alive and can raise that nonsense.
Yeah, because she's a great woman, but then as a result, there are some things you can get away with a lot, but just some things she would not. I had an interview for writing that would have been earlier. She was like, "You sure you want to do this?" I was like, "Okay."
Got it. Well, Ed, we'll definitely have you back on again because we want to hear how the book release goes, and as you continue to go through your IBC journey, I'm really interested to.
I'm interested now to apply my mind, and I know
Yeah.
what things are coming up, and it'll be really great. I think so.
We appreciate you joining us, and we hope that was value for everybody listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.